Chairs No Waiting, episode number 474, Bernard Fox. Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous 1998, part 2. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you by the folks over at WeaversDepartmentStore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out some of the cool stuff they've got. Brand new stuff. Andy Griffith long sleeve t-shirt. That's right, it's a printed shirt. Looks like Andy's shirt from the show. You can be Andy himself. Or maybe you want to cuddle up because it's still cold some places. Get a fishing hole woven throw to wrap up in. Head over to Weaver's Department Store and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. The executive producer of 473 is Marty Davis. Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Newsom. Thank you, Marty, for being our executive producer, and thank you for joining me here in Mayberry. It's always a great time to be here just to spend time talking about our favorite show, the Andy Griffith Show, and just reliving some great memories. Now, tonight, whenever you're listening to this podcast, we're going to be hearing again part 2 from Bernard Fox. Now, again, this was recorded back in 1998 at the Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous. It was the 6th annual one, and it may have been, there was one more that was kind of a combination, but I believe this was right at the end of this run for the Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous. Bernard was there, and if you don't remember who Bernard is, if you didn't hear last week's episode, he was Malcolm Merriweather, and of course he was Dr. Bombay on Bewitched, which many people, and he even said last week that most people remembered him from that role. So we're going to be hearing from him. And then following that, we're going to hear from Randy Turner in his This Week in Mayberry History installment, talking about Les Tremayne. Now, who is Les Tremayne? Stick around and find out. Okay, so hopefully you'll know after Randy gives his report. If you watch the video version, I show pictures of Les as we go through the episode, so you'll be able to see who he is. But I believe his description will help you remember him as we go. All right, guys, if everybody is ready, I'm all set. So let's go and hear from Bernard Fox over at the 1998 Squad Car Rendezvous.
Any other questions for Bernard? Go ahead. Can you make the paper trees you make for Opie?
Yeah.
Paper ladders?
You want to see it?
Oh, here we go. Great.
All right, so Bernard's on stage at the Rendezvous, and he's getting a newspaper.
I'll tell you about this. Harvey Bullock, on the second show, was a friend of mine, and he said to me, "Can you play an instrument?" And I said, "Well, I can play a penny whistle." And that didn't seem to impress him, and I needed the job, and I thought the job was going to go out the window. So I said, I can do paper magic. I can make a paper tree. And he said, "What is that?" I said, "Well, it's like this. Now, you take a piece of paper." Where is that little fellow that I was talking to? Over there. Come up here. I said, "You take a piece of paper and you roll it up, see? And then you tear it down one side like this."
So Bernard is tearing a newspaper that he's rolled up straight down the middle.
Now you turn it around and you flatten it out a little bit. Make it nice and flat.
So he tore it about halfway down the length
now
of the
then you
newspaper.
have to tear it down the other way.
And he's tearing it again in half, the same side. You can watch the video, you can see this.
However, we'll see what happens. Look at that.
And he tears it down both sides, and so the bottom is still solid, and the top side's been torn into 4 pieces.
You shake them all out like that. Are you with me so far? Now then, it's traditional that you have to wet your finger. Okay? And you put it down in there, and you start to gently pull it up.
So now he's pulling the paper ladder out, just like he did on the Andy Griffith Show, doing it live on stage there at the Rendezvous. Andy presents it to the young man who asked if he could make a paper tree like he did on the show.
Timber!
Great.
Yeah.
Now, did they let you ad-lib a lot of that type of stuff? I mean, things that you might want to say, because you obviously were from England and whatnot, so you somehow you probably would know more what to say than they would, is what an Englishman would say.
Well, yeah, no, I helped a lot with that on the Andy Griffith Show, because they would say all the stuff about the car, polishing the bonnet and cleaning out the boot. And somebody asked me last night that you said you had to, something about tinker with the hooter. And he said, we've all been talking about that. We can't figure out what a hooter is. Well, it was the horn. The horn of the car. And many of you won't remember, but the older cars, when I was small, they had a device on the side, and you pushed the handle down. You had a, do you remember that? That's a hooter. Thank you, sir. Very good impersonation. One fella there said, I've still got one.
Okay, down here, this little girl. Go ahead. How'd you get to Titanic? Well, we just tried out for Titanic? Is that basically how you got it, or?
Yeah, I think we just talked about that. Yeah, I had to go in and try out for it, and then the lady put it down on videotape, and she sent it to Jim Cameron. He was in Canada. Did you know he actually went down to the ship on the bottom of the ocean? He went down 15 times with a camera crew. And all that stuff you see in the movie where the camera's moving around the rusty ship down, he did all that down there.
Okay, let's chill. Your first time to America?
Yeah, well, it was 1962. And what had happened was I had been doing a play in Rome, Italy, and my wife, who's an American, was trying to play a Cockney maid. She was trying to be a Cockney maid, you see. And we got on famously, and when the play was over, I came to London, and she followed me there. And then, of course, the time came when her money ran out, and she came back home to Hollywood. And I went to the American Embassy to get a visa. And my father gave me all his papers and everything. And when I went to the American Embassy, my father was in the American Army in World War I. He was in the Tank Corps. And they said at the American Embassy, there's a very good chance that you are already an American citizen. So we checked into it, and we got his discharge papers. And you know who signed his discharge papers? Captain Patton. So I came to America, an American citizen, folks.
Anybody else likes Ask Bernard? Back there. Oh, I'm sorry, what was it? The scene where you acted drunk because you wanted Andy to fire you?
Well, I tell you, I went to the prop man and I said, you know, it would be very helpful if you had a shot of scotch or something for me. So he went into the prop room and he came out and he gave me a shot of scotch. And that was nice. But when I went and asked him for the second one, he gave me the fisheye. and a shot of scotch. So that helped. Yeah, it just gives you a little buzz there so that you don't have to rely entirely upon acting skills.
That's one of my favorite episodes, no doubt, is that one. Oh, yeah. I love the scene. In fact, my little boy, he was probably about 5 at the time, and he would go around saying the things as you said when you were drunk. You know, Miss B, where do you keep the salty crackers and stuff? He just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Anybody, the guy, gentleman back there? Can you still ride a bicycle?
I've got one, but it's hanging upside down in the garage. It hasn't been ridden in years. Yeah, but I could if I wanted to.
Has anyone ever talked to you about the Color episode with Howard Morris, where you and him were going to fight, and you recall that one? It was done later.
Yeah, is that the one where we were fighting?
Yeah.
That was interesting because it's like two actors working in unison. We rehearsed that with the producers and the directors on Howie's patio up at his house, and I never understood why. And he explained to me recently that his then wife had just had a baby, so he didn't want to leave the house. But we got up there, and the writer had put in the script that Howie takes a flying leap and ends up with his legs around Malcolm's neck. And they said there was no way we could do that. And I said, sure there is. And I turned to Howie and put my fist up like this. Howie came barreling, leapt in the air, and I ducked a little bit, caught him, and he was up with his legs around my neck. And that's how that worked out.
Okay. Anybody else? Back here. In doing Bewitched, not only the scenes where you would disappear and appear, but the puffs of smoke, the flash,
Yeah. When a special effects man tells you this won't hurt at all, never believe him. Never believe him. My rear end was scorched several times on Bewitched. And I remember one time, you remember the film Private Eyes with Don Knotts? Remember that at all? There was a scene in that where the maid put a hot iron on my butt, and I walked away, and I ran away, and it was smoking. And there again, they put sort of, not styrofoam, but they put some kind of pads under my pants, and they covered this iron and me then with some acid, burned its way right through my pants, right through the styrofoam, right through my underpants, and was starting out on me before I got them off. No.
The gentleman back there.
As you know, Roy Rogers is being laid to rest today. Did you appear in any westerns with any of the big stars?
Good question. Did you do any westerns at all? I know you did F Troop.
No. Sadly, I never ever did a western. I wrote some in. Remember they had a series, Daniel Boone, and they used to have all these dreadful British officers beating up on the American soldiers, and a couple of those I had to ride. But I do ride, and I used to keep a horse in England for a long, long time.
And then you like I mentioned, the F Troop. You were on, remember King Barry and Larry Storch and the Cavalry?
F Troop. Oh, sure. F Troop. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, that was a good part. Now, that was one of the roles that, if the series had continued, I was going to become Major Bentley Royce of the Bengal Lancers. Right? I mean, that's right up my street. That's Colonel Crittenden, Dr. Bombay, all rolled into one. He was a real schmuck, and great.
Have you ever met Roy?
Had you ever met Roy Rogers?
Never met Roy Rogers, no, sad to say.
He was big in England, wasn't he, Roy Rogers?
Yeah.
When he first, and you wouldn't think that, but in England, the cowboy movies are
very popular in England.
Mm-hmm.
All the kids used to go see Roy Rogers.
Yeah, I know you don't think about the Western heroes being popular over in Europe, but I remember some of the favorite. If I'm not mistaken, I read Adolf Hitler was a big fan of Tom Mix.
We're talking about westerns now. You know, I did Big Jake with John Wayne. Anybody remember that?
Big Jake, yeah.
Oh boy, Big Jake, and I flew down to Mexico with Big Jim Davis. Remember him?
Of Dallas.
Big Jim Davis from Dallas. And Jim was terrified of flying. And he's gripping the seat as we're going up, and his knuckles are white, and he's saying, "Oh Jesus, oh Jesus, oh Jesus, oh Jesus." He got several martinis down him before we left, and we got down there, and we flew through the night, and they put us down at some place called Culiacan and told us we had to drive through the night to some seaside Mexican place, get into a little plane, a Tiger Moth thing, and fly to Durango down in Mexico. And we arrived in the morning, they put us in wardrobe, they made us up, they put me on a horse, they put a rope around my neck, and we shot the scene. And as we're driving back to the motel, I said, "We're going to be out of here tomorrow." And he said, No. We said, "No, we won't. They've got to see the Russians," and all that kind of thing. Well, he had gone to customs, duty-free, and he bought 2 bottles of vodka, and I bought 2 bottles of scotch, and they told us that night they were flying us out tomorrow. So something had to be done with the 2 bottles of vodka and the 2 bottles of scotch, and I'm here to tell you, we killed them. With the rest of the cast, of course, but I got on that plane the next morning. The plane landed, and I got on, and I had the worst hangover you've ever had in your life. And I said to the hostess, "Alka-Seltzer." And she said, "Si, senor, when we are in the air." I said, now, Alka-Seltzer, now. And I got the Alka-Seltzer, and Jim Davis said, "Geez," he said, "that's class. The guy's got an Alka-Seltzer. We're still on the ground."
Anybody else for Bernard? Anybody in the back, or anybody?
Right there.
Right here. Johnny Carson, Tonight Show. Did you ever do that?
The what?
The Tonight Show, Johnny Carson?
No, I did the Merv Griffin Show. I went on and sang a series of British music hall songs. One of them was, let's see, I'm Henry the Eighth, I am Henry the Eighth, I got married to the widow next door. She'd been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. She wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. I'm the 8th old man named Henry. Henry the Eighth, I am Henry the Eighth, I am. Thank you.
Which brings up the fact that you were in the Herman's Hermits movie.
The what movie?
The Herman's Hermits movie. Remember the rock band Herman's Hermits?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Very popular. You were in the movie with them.
Yeah, they used to sing, I'm leaning on the lamppost at the corner of the street until a certain little lady comes by. Oh, me, oh, my, till that certain little lady comes by. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah, you got to go back. Anybody else want to ask Bernard anything?
What was the last movie you made?
Titanic, right?
No. This one, I just got back from Morocco with the Mummy, which is starring Brendan Fraser, who you will remember from George of the Jungle, right? Nice young man. He's a really nice man. Looked after his old dad very well indeed. As we were climbing up in the middle of the Sahara Desert, we were climbing up sand dunes, and you take 1 step forward and 3 steps back. And Brendan grabbed my arm, and he was helping me up there. He's a really nice kid. Yeah.
One I remember, though, when one Saturday morning I was watching Pee-wee's Playhouse with my little boy.
Right, I did one of those too.
And the genie Jambi was sick that day, and they had to call Dr. Jinga Jonga.
Yeah.
And it was Bernard Fox.
Oh, sure. That was one where I was happy to lapse into Dr. Bombay.
Yeah, exactly. It was like basically a Dr. Bombay.
Yeah.
It was great. Love that one. Anybody else? Over here. There you go. Who you enjoy working with the most in all your past?
Yeah, a lot of them went very. I liked Bob Crane a lot. You know, Bob. When we were on the road together, he saw that you were comfortable and taken care of. Old Boris Karloff, he was the darling. Bob Vaughan was a bit strange on The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I worked with him again on The Love Boat. Peter Falk was a dear. He's an amazing man, Peter Falk. You know, on Columbo. We did a 2-part Columbo, and we flew to London to do 1 part. And Peter, he's a takeover kind of guy. He said, you know, Bernie, we should have shots of the Tower of London. We should have shots of the Tower of London, the Thames. And I said, yeah. So he said, give me the 2nd unit. And we got in a car at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in London, which is rush hour, and we started heading for the Thames and the Tower of London. So we went down the Thames, and you'll see it. I'm pointing out things to Peter Falk. And we went up to the Tower of London, and Peter set up his camera right under a sign that said, absolutely no photography allowed. And out from his little booth comes a beefeater. Well, you know what, they're a gentleman in a dress with a flat hat and the buckles on the shoes and the spear. He said, out of it, get out of it, I know you, I've seen your face, I've seen you here before, I know you, you get out of it. And Peter Falk, the star of Columbo, had the tripod folded up and slunk away. And when we got back to the production office, they pounced on him. Evidently, the Tower of London people had called. He said to Peter, have you been interfering with a beefeater? He said, no, I didn't interfere with a beefeater. But imagine, Peter Falk told off by a guy in a skirt. That's quite something.
Okay, anybody else back here?
Yeah, I'm a big Perry Mason fan, but I can't remember what episode you were in.
Perry Mason. You did Perry Mason.
Yeah, I did Perry Mason, and at that time I did, as a matter of fact, Perry Mason and Ironsides. And at that time, he was very overweight, didn't want to work a lot, and so what he would do, he'd do all his close-ups. And then he'd go back to his dressing room, and you were playing to a girl sitting on a ladder, a step ladder, holding a hand up, which is difficult because her hand was up there and her voice is down here. And, you know, when you hear the dialogue then, your eyes automatically go to where it's coming from. You have to sort of think twice, and, oh, it's up there. He's a nice enough fellow, yeah.
Was that the episode of Perry Mason? Was that the one where Dick Clark was the murderer?
I can't remember.
I mean, I realize you've done so much, it's hard to remember, but it seems like I recall that's the one that you were in. Anybody else like to talk to Bernard? Go ahead. All right, say it again. Did you do your own stunts and shows and whatnot? Like in the Griffith Show, don't you crash on the bike and flip over the truck and whatnot?
You know, I did that stuff then, and a few stunts I've done, but I've given up that a long time ago. And I was very relieved to see that on the Titanic they had a stunt double for me. And it was interesting, he was a British stunt double. And I was in my room and my name on the door, Colonel Archibald Gracie. And I suppose his room was identical next door. And a couple of nights he came in, he opened my door, he was soaking wet, and he got my top hat on and my overcoat, and he'd opened the door. And you know, with a stunt man, you expect a rough accent, something like, "Oh, sorry, mate, I'm sorry, I apologise, you know." No, still, this fellow came in, he said, "Oh, I say, I'm frightfully sorry, I don't know how I could keep doing this." He was like a proper gentleman who was a stuntman.
Now, what a lot of people may not know, fans of the Dick Van Dyke Show, everyone has seen the episode where Laura gets her big toe stuck in the toilet, the bathtub spout.
Yeah.
You were in that episode, weren't you?
Yes, I was a detective in that, and it's interesting, that was the one show, and it's mentioned in several books about the Dick Van Dyke Show, that Mary got very upset. I'm not quite sure what it was, but she walked off the set. And it was the only time, I believe, that she ever did that. And Carl Reiner, I remember, was also very upset. And I think his remark was, I put you up in a few crazy crates in my time, but they all flew. And that, anyway, that's when she flew, went off to her dressing room.
Okay, well, Bernard, we're going to keep you here all day. We're going to get back here and sign some autographs for all the folks. Let's give Bernard Fox a big round. Malcolm Merriweather, all the way from Eckmondorf.
I was going to do a monologue about, that I always do, that I don't want my cigar to go out. And it's gone out. But I've got a real quick one for you. It's an English monologue. It's about, you know, we were all given gifts last night, which was very nice. And this is about the giving of gifts. I think you'll enjoy it. It's now my sister's daughter, Elizabeth May, is going to get married next Sunday, they say. So what shall I buy her? She's such a nice girl. I believe a piano would do very well. I saw one today, quite a beauty I found. Only $800. I'll have it sent round. And yet I don't know. And yet I don't know. I believe she's the rottenest player I know. And if she starts thumping out that maiden's prayer, her husband will murder his missus, so there. I'll not send her a piano. It's not that I mean. I know what I'll buy her. A sewing machine. And yet I don't know. And yet I don't know. A machine would cost $80 or so. And with that you can buy lots of linen and thread and things that are handmade, are best, so it's said. It's not that I'm mingy. A Lormouth Scotch. I know what I'll buy her. An Ingersoll watch. And yet I don't know. And yet I don't know. In 10 years it'll be either too fast or too slow. And then she might sell it or pawn it, so there. I know what I'll buy her. A nice jumper to wear. And yet I don't know. And yet I don't know. Girls might not wear jumpers in 10 years or so. They could go out of fashion before very long, and stout girls in jumpers to me are all wrong. And open work jumpers can give girls the flu. So I'll buy her some handkerchiefs. That's what I'll do. And yet I don't know. And yet I don't know. Some hankies would cost me $5 or so, and that seems a lot for poor Uncle John. And anything goes to blow noses on. And talking of noses, hers is red enough, so I know what I'll buy her. A nice powder puff. Now, you can't powder your nose with a piano, nor yet with a sewing machine. You can't powder your nose with an Ingersoll watch. Well, that's silly, you know what I mean. You can't powder your nose with a jumper. She'd find that a little bit rough. So I'll pop down to Woolworths tomorrow, God bless her, and buy her a nice powder puff. And yet I don't know. And yet I don't know. 50-cent pieces, they don't grow in backyards. I'll not buy her a powder puff, no. I'll just send her my kindest regards.
Bernard Fox, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so there we go, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was Bernard Fox. And as we were listening to that or watching it, that was the first time I had seen that in years because I haven't been watching them. Now, the person doing the interviewing was Dennis Hasty. He was the host of a Mayberry-related radio program up there in Cincinnati, and he was obviously a pop culture. He knows all kinds of stuff about TV, movies, everything, as you could tell by the questions he was asking Bernard. So it's great. And the video with the audio came from, if you're listening only to the audio podcast, my wife, Jan, recorded the video that you were able to see there. So I want to thank both of them for helping to bring you this episode. Great job. The audio, I think, was very good. It was good quality. It's always hard when you're at a live event to get good audio quality, and Jan must have set up the tripod right beside a speaker because you could hear everything Bernard said. It was very good. She did a great job, and Dennis, great job to you as well. So thank you so much. All right, guys, we have another treat for you. Is This Week in Mayberry History by Randy Turner.
Welcome to This Week in Mayberry History, a report by special correspondent Randy Turner of the Gomer and Cooper Pyle Comic Book Literary Guild of the Mayberry Historical Society.
Les Tremayne was born on April the 16th, 1913 in London. Les was well known originally in radio, though he also appeared in films and television. But to Mayberry fans, he was memorable as jewel thief C.J. Hassler. But his longest-running TV role also had an indirect connection to another character in the Andy Griffith Show. When Les was only 4, his family moved to Chicago, where he quickly learned to lose his British accent. When only 17, he made his first national radio appearance, and a bit part in The Shadow of Fu Manchu. But within just a few years, he had become a busy radio character actor. He replaced Don Amici as a principal in The First Nighter, the first radio anthology show to present an original play every week. He also appeared in another radio series that held a record, One Man's Family, a radio soap opera that ran for nearly 3 decades and was the longest-running uninterrupted radio drama in U.S. history. He played the leading man in a number of soap opera radio series, including Betty and Bob, The Romance of Helen Trent, and Wendy Warren in the News. He was one of several actors to play the lead in The Adventures of the Thin Man, portraying Dashiell Hammett's detective Nick Charles in the popular radio series which followed the Thin Man films. He also notably played the private investigator known as the Falcon in a series of the same name. Les was married 4 times, but he and his second wife co-starred in the popular morning radio talk show, The Tremaynes. His own name also was used in another radio show he did, playing the straight man to a comedian who later became immensely popular in the Jackie Gleason Les Tremayne Show. But as radio waned, Les transitioned to television and film. His television debut was in the TV version of the radio series One Man's Family, in which he had appeared. He played the title character in The Further Adventures of Ellery Queen, and the recurring character Major Stone in The Adventures of Ren 1010. In film, Les appeared in movies such as Francis Goes to West Point and The War of the Worlds. And of course, Les guest starred in The Andy Griffith Show. He was jewel thief C.J. Hassler, who was operating in the same hotel where Andy and Barney were staying, and convinced Barney that the house detective was actually the jewel thief. In another early guest appearance, this time in The Danny Thomas Show, he played a character with a name that would be important in a different series later in his career. In that show, he played Harry Marvel. And in the television show he appeared in the longest, he was mentor to the superhero Captain Marvel. And it was this role that had a loose connection to the Andy Griffith Show. Captain Marvel was a superhero in comic books published by Fawcett Comics, who the publishers of DC Comics thought too similar to their character, Superman. The Captain Marvel comics ceased publication in 1953, partially as a result of a lawsuit brought by DC, which enabled Marvel Comics to create a completely different character in the 1960s, who they also called Captain Marvel. DC Comics eventually obtained the rights to the original Captain Marvel, but can now no longer use the name. So they had to name a children's show that premiered in 1974 with the magic word that changed Billy Batson into Captain Marvel, Shazam. Gomer Pyle had obviously also been a fan of the original Captain Marvel, as he often used the word Shazam as an expression. By the way, the magic word Shazam stood for superhuman powers Captain Marvel was granted: the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. Les passed away in 2003 at the age of 90. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening, and remember to take Andy's advice and go out there and act like somebody.
Thank you, Randy. I love your reports every week. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of his reports, his online ones, you can send an email to turnersgrade@gmail.com, and Randy will make sure you don't miss any. turnersgrade@gmail.com. Randy, thank you again so much. I knew nothing about Les Tremayne, so that was really interesting. The last couple of weeks, I've learned a lot. I had no idea that he was English, that he had a British accent. I'd never heard that. I watched as a child. I watched was a young boy. I watched Shazam. I loved that show. I used to run around yelling that all the time. So I knew where Gomer got it, but cool connection that you made there. So, folks, I hope you have enjoyed these interviews with Bernard Fox. I hope you've enjoyed Randy Turner's This Week in Mayberry History. And I hope you've just enjoyed the podcast in general. Get out there and tell folks about it. If you enjoy it, make sure that they know all about Two Chairs, No Waiting. Spread the Mayberry love. Get out there and head over to Weaver's and buy some stuff too. Folks, I want to thank you again for being here. I look forward to it every week, and I hope you do as well. And we'll see you next time right here. Oh, wait, you need to call me at 888-684-8415 or email me at floyd@imayberry.com. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, we'll see you right here on Two Chairs.